Hello guys, welcome to the fiction series. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto got harem with Cinder and Danzō? Part 1. If you want more awesome fan fiction like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, so without wasting any time let's get into the video. Warehouse 76, Vital, 12:03 AM. The fragmented moon stood high in the sky as the night rolled on. Outside the warehouse, nothing went on save for the occasional light flickering on and off as two shady men dressed in all black suits with red shades stood outside the main entrance to the warehouse. Inside the warehouse was a different story as dozens of men dressed in the same outfit walked around inspecting large crates. One of the men stood out more so than the others, standing at 5'6" wearing a dark gray suit and a matching fedora. He had shaggy black hair with a goatee and was currently holding a phone to his ears. "Understood, sir, yes sir. I'm confirming the shipment right now as we speak," the man said. Said individual was Raul Rodriguez, former member of SI-6, Secret Intelligence, Section 6, turned wanted criminal, now being employed by the notorious Roman/RWBY. For safety reasons and for lack of availability, Roman sent Raul to inspect an incoming shipment of illegal weapons. Back outside the warehouse, a shadowy figure blurred through the night, followed by 11 more silhouettes. Leaping onto one of the numerous crates stacked high silently, the light being emitted from the moon revealed more details of the mysterious person. The figure had masculine features and stood at 5'10" with lightly tanned skin and chin-length spiky black hair, with crimson-red tips at the ends that parted to frame the sides of the man's face. His attire consisted of a kitsune-like porcelain mask, black clothing, a gray flak jacket, metal arm guards and gloves, ninja sandals with spikes, 3 ninja pouches on the back waist, and a spiral tattoo on his left shoulder. Hanging on either side of the man's side was a pair of black and crimson-red commas attached by a chain at the ends. The man crouched down as he stared at the two men standing outside the main entrance to the warehouse. Putting a hand to his ear, the man activated his communication device. "This is Kitsune, I'm in position. What's your status?" The now identified Kitsune stated. "This is Nico, in position." A female voice said. "This is Taka, I'm in position." A male voice said. "This is Usagi, in position." Another female voice said. "This is Kuma, in position." A different male voice said. "This is Hibi, in position." A quite female voice said. "This is Inu, I'm in position." A masculine voice said. "This is Teiko, in position." Another male voice said. "This is Tora, in position." A gruff male voice said. "Andori in position." Another masculine voice said. "Amadori in position." A male voice stated. "Harasu in position." Another male voice stated. "Alright. Nico, Usagi, take out the guards out front," Kitsune ordered. "Hiben Teicho." Nico and Usagi replied. Moments later the two men standing outside the door slumped over unconscious, both females standing behind their bodies. "Taka, Kuma, Teiko, get to a vantage point and await the signal," Kitsune said. "Hi." The three replied before silently leaping off. "Nico, Usagi, Hibi, guard the exits in case we get any runners," Kitsune ordered. "Hi." The three females replied before heading into position to observe the exits. "The rest of you are with me. Let's move out," Kitsune said. "Hiben Teicho," was the chorus of replies. The group leapt to the main entrance and silently opened the door. Looking inside, the group saw numerous henchmen walking around and Raul inspecting the crates around, revealing glimpses of various guns. All of which were highly illegal. "Awaiting orders, Benteicho," Taka said. "We need a visual confirmation on the target before we can proceed," Kitsune quietly said. "Target confirmed," Taka said after 15 seconds of radio silence. "He's the one with the gray suit." "Take out the lights on my mark," Kitsune said, Tora nodding his head as he proceeded to the conveniently nearby power box that controlled all the lights. Opening the box up, Tora nodded his head once more awaiting the orders of his commander. 3-2-1 mark, Kitsune said. "The shipment has been confirmed, sir," Raul said. Suddenly, the lights went out, causing panic among his henchmen. "What the?" he asked. Before he could finish his question, gunshots were heard as the henchmen around fired off their weapons in panic as they were silenced by various stealth figures. "Oh, shit," Raul exclaimed, starting to run towards the nearest exit but tripped over a mysterious object and fell over. He suddenly felt 2 cold metal objects coil around his wrists, binding them together. "Raul Rodriguez. You're under arrest for illegal gun trafficking, drug trafficking, embezzlement of dust, murder of the first and second degree, robbery, and in the abetting of Roman/RWBY," Kitsune said, listing off Raul's crimes. "Isn't this the part where you say to me, you have the right to remain silent? Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. And all that other stuff?" Raul asked. "You have the right to remain silent," Kitsune said, swiftly knocking Raoul out with a chop to the neck. Kitsune to Overlord. Target has been secured. He said, putting his hand to the earpiece communication device on the right side of his head. Copy that, Kitsune. Good job. Overlord said, proceed to rally point Delta. Roger that. Kitsune said. Vale, Vital, the next day, 8:25 am. 7 hours had passed by since Raul Rodriguez was captured, though that was unbeknownst to the city at the time. An old man with gray hairs stood on top of a ladder as he hung a sign underneath the building's name, From Dusk Till Dawn, signifying its reopening from a dust robbery nearly half a year ago. As he climbed down from the ladder, the old man stumbled and fell. Excuse me, sorry. I'm not really from around here. A feminine voice said, giggling slightly. The old shopkeeper looked up to see a thin female with dark skin and dark red eyes. Her hair was a light mint green cut with a straight fringe and bangs, as well as 2 long locks on each side. She wore 2 bronze-colored rings on her middle fingers, as well as high-heeled shoes. She also wore a shallow-cut undershirt, white pants and brown chaps that ended at her calves and an overlong belt, twice wrapped. This girl was known by the name of Emerald. Would you mind pointing me in the direction of this shop? She asked, producing a piece of paper with writing on it. The shopkeeper looked it over before nodding his head and pointing in the shop's given direction. Emerald walked away from the shopkeeper, both waving goodbye. As she passed a corner, a pale, well-built man with silver gray eyes and partially slicked back, yet unkempt at the front, hair of the same color, wearing a gray and black two-tone partial zip jacket that covered his upper body, leaned against a wall. I knew you were lost. The man said. Mercury, I will seriously pay you to shut up. Emerald said, waving a wallet with lean in the now identified as Mercury's face. That's not your money. Mercury pointed out. But it can be yours for 5 minutes of silence. No deal. Mercury said. Fine. Emerald said, taking the lean out of the wallet and then tossing it. She then proceeded to walk away. Whatever. You want me? Mercury said. So, how much farther? Mercury asked. A few blocks. Emerald replied. Ugh, this place is so dull. Mercury complained. I kinda like it. Tall buildings, diverse culture, Emerald stated. And nice dopey people who are easy to pickpocket. Mercury added, causing Emerald to stop momentarily. That's every city. Emerald said. Boo, Emerald. Master Thief. Please don't take my money. I barely have enough to get by. Mercury mocked, acting like a victim. Emerald glared at him and groaned angrily before walking away from him. Ugh, you're no fun today. Soon enough, the duo arrived at their destination, entering a shop full of books. The shop owner was humming a tune as Mercury stopped near the door to look at books, while Emerald approached the counter and rang the service bell. Be right there. The shop owner said. Emerald looked back at Mercury as the shop owner went through a set of double doors, carrying stacks of books as he walked backwards and out towards the counter. Welcome to Tuckson's book trade, home to every book under the sun. The shop owner greeted, setting the stacks of books down. How may I? He started, but gasped and hesitated, turning around and recognizing the two of them. How may I help you? Just browsing. Mercury said, closing the book in his hand. Actually, I was wondering, do you have any copies of The Thief and the Butcher? Emerald asked. Yes, we do. The shop owner, now identified as Tucson, replied. That's great. Emerald said excitedly. Would you like a copy? Tucson questioned. No, just wondering. Emerald said. Mercury closed another book. Oh. What about Violet's Garden? In paperback. He's got it. Hardback too. Mercury said, holding up the book in question in his hand. How about The Tale of a Gutsy Ninja? Emerald asked. There aren't too many copies of that one, but I've got some in the back. Tucson said, motioning to the doors behind the counter. Ooh, options are nice. Emerald stated. No pictures. Mercury said, closing another book. Hey. Do you have any comics? Near the front. Tucson said. Oh, no, wait. Emerald exclaimed, what about Third Crusade? Tucson hesitated, visibly unnerved. Mercury and Emerald eyeing him carefully. Don't believe we carry that one. Oh. Mercury said, slamming another book shut. What was this place called again? Emerald asked. Tuckson's book trade. Tucson said. And you're Tucson? Emerald questioned. That's right. Tucson said. So then I take it that you're the one that came up with the catchphrase? Emerald questioned. Yes. And what was it again? Mercury asked. Tuckson's book trade, home to every book under the sun. Tucson quoted. Except the Third Crusade. Mercury pointed out. It's just a catchphrase. Tucson countered. It's false advertising. Mercury exclaimed. You shouldn't make a promise you can't keep, Tucson. Emerald said. Mercury activated a switch near the entrance which caused one of the front windows to darken. I hear that you're planning on leaving. Moving all the way to Vacuo. Mercury activated another switch, another window in the front darkened. Your brothers in the White Fang won't be happy to hear that. She stated. Mercury activated a third switch, causing the last of the windows in the front to darken. And neither are we. You know who we are, don't you? Yes. Tucson replied. And you know why we're here? Yes. So are you going to fight back? Yes. Tucson yelled, producing claws from his fingers. Yarg. He leapt atop his counter in a threatening manner. Mercury and Emerald backed up slightly as Tucson lunged at Emerald and slashed at her, but she dodged. Tucson looked forward and was surprised at Mercury as he raised on leg for a kick with his shotgun greaves. A minute later, Mercury and Emerald exited Tucson's book trade. Emerald stretched her arms overhead and Mercury was carrying a comic. What's with that? Emerald asked, noticing the comic in her partner's hands. I like the pictures. Mercury replied. Beacon Academy Cafeteria, 11:43 a.m. Blake stared down at a series of sketches and notes in her book. What stood out was the White Fang insignia. Yang caught small pieces of fruit in her mouth that were flung from a spoon by Nora. Whatcha doing? Yang asked. Nothing. Blake said, closing her book, just going over notes from last semester. Lame. Yang said, catching a couple of grapes in her mouth and giving Nora a thumbs up. Ruby entered and slammed a huge binder onto the table, disrupting the calm. Ahem. Ruby said, gesturing to her teammates at the table, sister's friends Weiss. Hey. Weiss exclaimed. 4 minutes ago, I had a dream. Ruby said. This ought to be good. Yang stated. A dream that one day, the four of us will come together as a team and have the most fun anyone has ever had ever. Ruby exclaimed. Did you steal my binder? Weiss asked. I am not a crook. Ruby said, making a peace sign with both hands. What are you talking about? Blake asked. I'm talking about kicking off the semester with a bang. Ruby said, pointing her finger at Blake. I always kick my semesters off with a yang. Hey. Guys. Am I right? Yang joked. The others seemed less than impressed by Yang's lame pun. Anbu headquarters, Vale, 11:45 a.m. Kitsune was currently changing out of his uniform, opting to wear a black long-sleeved shirt and baggy pants. He suddenly stopped what he was doing as his sixth sense kicked in. Grabbing his phone, he dialed up one of his nieces. Beacon Academy Cafeteria, 11:46 a.m. The area around Yang was silent, save for the sound of a cricket chirping and a random person throwing an apple at her, followed by someone yelling boo. Suddenly her cell phone went off. Answering the phone, Yang held the cellular device up to her ear. Hello? She asked. Hey Yang, my sixth sense is telling me something. The voice said, it's telling me that you just said a lame pun. Well then, your sixth sense is off. I'll have you know that it was an awesome pun. Yang retorted. The sixth sense never lies. The voice said before hanging up. How does he do that? Yang mumbled. Who was it Yang? Ruby asked. Just Uncle Naruto. He somehow always knows when I do something lame. Yang stated. Uncle Naruto? Weiss asked. Oh yeah. You don't know about Uncle Naruto. Yang realized. He's our uncle, our mother's brother. Ruby said before going back on topic. Look guys, it's been a good 2 weeks and between more exchange students arriving and the tournament at the end of the year, our second semester is going to be great. But classes start back up tomorrow. Which is why I've taken the time to schedule a series of wonderful events for us today. I don't know whether to be proud or scared of what you have in store. Weiss said, conflicted between pride and fear. Yang, still glaring, picked up an apple and tossed it across the room. Hey. The same person who threw exclaimed as he was hit by an apple courtesy of Yang. Nora could be heard giggling at Yang's antics. I don't know. I think I might sit this one out. Blake said. Sit out or not, I think that however we spend this last day, we should do it as a team. Weiss exclaimed. I got it. Nora shouted positively. I for one think that Weiss started but was cut off by a pie landing on her face. Looking across the room, Weiss saw Nora standing up, indicating she was the one who threw the pie. Sitting down, Nora pointed at Ren who had his head in his palm. Puri had her hand over her mouth as she suppressed a giggle and John simply sat staring wide-eyed while covering his ear with his palm. Outside the cafeteria, 2 exchange students were walking towards the cafeteria. The one on the left was a tan-skinned boy with short spiky light blonde hair and dark gray eyes. He wore 2 red wrist bracers and an open loose-collared white jacket with no shirt underneath, displaying his muscular abs. He also wore blue cargo pants tied up with a white belt with white bandages on his legs underneath and had a chain hanging from his belt loop on the right. He sported black and yellow sneakers and had a twisted golden necklace with a round pendant hanging from his neck. What stood out more was a monkey tail the same color of his hair attached to his body. Next to him was a teenage boy with tan skin, dark blue eyes and messy light blue hair that was shaved on the sides and in the back. He wore a white dress shirt and black tie under a red jacket with white upturned black collar and a pair of grey jeans with black padding strapped to the sides. A silver symbol was on the back of his jacket. He also wore black shoes that were fastened with straps rather than laces, black fingerless gloves, and a pair of yellow-tinted goggles worn on his forehead. These two were Sun Wukong and his teammate Neptune. "Man, that's harsh," Neptune stated, Sun having just recalled the events which took place with his encounter with Roman Torchwick alongside Team RWBY, RWBY. "I know, we were fighting side by side. She was super fast and I threw a banana at the guy, which sounds gross, but it was awesome," Sun said. "Nice," Neptune said. "Right. And the best part is, she's a faunus. But that's a secret, okay?" Sun said. "Got it," Neptune complied. "And not a, I'm gonna go tell Scarlet the second Sun turns his back secret, I'm talking secret, Sun whispered, leaning in close in order to stress the importance of this secret. "Whoa, chill out, man, okay? I got it," Neptune said before whispering, "I got it." "You better," Sun said. Back inside the cafeteria, food was splattered everywhere as students ran around. At one point, John was the one splattered into the window. "I just don't want to screw this up, you know. The people here are the coolest. No offense to you guys." "None taken," Neptune replied. "They're just in here. I'm really excited for you to meet them. So be cool, okay? You're gonna be cool, right?" Sun asked. "Dude," Neptune said, his teeth gleaming as he smiled. "Good point," Sun said. The duo entered the cafeteria, only to see mass panic among the students. "Good fight," a random Beacon students yelled. Many of the students ran out the doors past Sun and Neptune, the latter of whom looked quite worried. "Ahahaha," Nora exclaimed. Team JNPR, Juniper, was shown to be standing atop a tower of tables stacked in a ramshackle manner. "I'm queen of the castle. I'm queen of the castle," she said in a sing-song voice. "Justice will be swift. Justice will be painful," Ruby exclaimed, stomping her foot on a table and pointing at Team JNPR, Juniper, before crushing a carton of milk in her hand. "It will be delicious." "Yeah." Team RWBY, RWBY, yelled, raising their fists simultaneously. "Off with their heads," Nora yelled, jumping down from the top of her tower. Ren flipped and stomped up a trio of melons which he kicked. John dived onto a melon and rolled before heaving it through the air. Purah lobbed 2 more melons through the air. And Nora heaved an entire table full of melons and launched the entirety of it at Team RWBY, RWBY. "Yang, turkey," Ruby yelled. Yang rolled over to the turkeys and stuck her fists inside them, proceeding to block and punch the incoming melons. Blake and Purah grabbed baguettes and began to spar, while John was knocked over by Yang's flying turkeys. Purah knocked Blake down and speared 3 baguettes at Yang. Ruby blocked another thrown baguette using a food tray she was riding like a skateboard. She then landed on Purah and knocked her over. Ren slipped on Weiss's ketchup trap as he charged at Ruby. Nora impaled a watermelon on a pole and began to use it as a makeshift hammer. She knocked Ruby down while aiming for Weiss. The latter retrieved a swordfish to fight Nora, but was hammered through several tables and into a pillar near one end of the cafeteria. The impact knocked her out, and Ruby held her in her arms as the pillar collapsed around them. Weiss, don't leave me. "No," Ruby exclaimed. Yang equipped herself with more turkeys as she started battling Ren, the latter holding leek stalks. Yang gave Ren an uppercut, and Ren hurled his weapons down at her whilst in midair. Yang leapt high into the air and punched Ren, slamming him into the ground. Nora hammered Yang through the ceiling, destroying the melon in the process. Blake dodged the ceiling debris by rolling to her feet. Grabbing a link of sausages, she whipped Nora back against a soda machine. Using the soda cans as ammunition, Nora threw them back at Blake and they exploded like grenades, spraying soda everywhere. Purah used her polarity semblance to levitate the soda cans and launched them in one huge maelstrom at Team RWBY, RWBY, knocking out Blake. Ruby then got fired up and used her speed semblance to rush Team JNPR, Juniper, catching the soda cans in her wake like a vacuum and drawing them back to Team JNPR, Juniper. She torpedoes into the group, the food and soda and Team JNPR, Juniper, following behind her. She leapt into the air just before the objects and people behind her impacted against the wall. She then landed calmly before a cracked wall painted with soda and food. Team JNPR, Juniper, slid off the wall, leaving only their outlines. "I love these guys," Sun said. Looking to his left, Sun saw Neptune drenched with soda and pissed off. The doors behind them opened and a middle-aged woman with very light blonde hair tied back in a bun with a curl hanging down the right side of her face. Her eyes were a bright green and she wore thin rectangular glasses. She had teal hanging earrings with a small bead identical to her earrings on her collar. She wore a white long-sleeved suit that exposed part of her chest and puffy sleeves that tightened near the wrist before spreading back out near her hands. Her lower body had a black business skirt with buttons running in a vertical line up the front of it and lighter black-brown stockings. She also wore black boots with brown heels and a tattered cape that was purple inside and black on the outside, decorated by a row of diamond-shaped brown beads going horizontally across her cape. Above this line of beads appeared an emblem of tiara and in her hands was a black crop. This was Glinda Goodwitch and she was severely pissed. "Children, please," Glinda said, adjusting her glasses, "do not play with your food." Nora burped aloud as both Team JNPR, Juniper, and RWBY, Ruby, tried and failed to compose themselves. A screaming yang then crashed through the ceiling and into one of the tables. Glinda grumbled as a middle-aged man with tousled gray hair and thin brown eyes, wearing shaded glass spectacles and a dark green scarf with a small purple cross-hate emblem on it, put his hand on her shoulder. He wore an unzipped black suit over a black button vest with a green undershirt underneath. He also wore black trouser shoes and long dark green pants. Interestingly, the man had black eyebrows. This man was Professor Osborne, headmaster of Beacon Academy. "Let it go," Osborne said. "They're supposed to be the defenders of the world," Glinda sighed. "And they will be, but right now they're still children," Osborne said. Team RWBY, Ruby, began laughing together, "So why not let them play the part?" he questioned, walking away from Glinda. "After all, it isn't a role they'll get to have forever." "I bet this kind of thing doesn't happen at ANBU headquarters," Glinda thought. ANBU headquarters cafeteria, 12:09 p.m. Multiple ANBU that were out of uniform lay sprawled around the cafeteria covered in various foods in all places. Standing on top of a pile of defeated ANBU was an unmasked kitsune. His face appeared void of baby fat, his charcoal black eyes had a certain mischievous gleam to them, and a fox-like grin was plastered on his face. Suddenly, a man standing at 5'9" with brown shaggy hair and brown eyes appeared. "The day is the day. I shall best thee and claim my rightful place as king of the cafeteria, Naruto Uchiha," the man yelled, lunging at Kitsune, whose real name was Naruto Uchiha, holding a slice of pizza in his hand. "Bitch please. Many better than you have tried before. And all have failed," Naruto yelled back, grabbing a nearby churro as he too lunged at his attacker, laughing like a madman. Many people who were walking around outside the cafeteria heard the mad laughter and began to slowly back away from the building. Unknown location, 5:35 p.m. Inside a secret warehouse, various White Fang members mulled around the area, moving crate after crate of stolen dust, as a tall man wearing all white and a bowler's hat stood over a table. Roman Torchwick was pissed. No, he was beyond pissed. The notorious criminal slammed his fist against the table he was leaning on. In his hands was the latest newspaper. "Raul Rodriguez captured," was what the headline read. He was broken out of his musings by the sound of footsteps approaching him. "Oh, look. She sent the kids again. This is turning out just like the divorce," Roman said, approaching the two sources of the sound of footsteps, Emerald and Mercury. He wrapped his arms around the in a group hug as Emerald shivered in disgust. "Spare us the thought of you procreating," Emerald said, pulling away from Roman. Mercury doing the same. "That was a joke. And this just might tell me where you two have been all day," Roman said, producing a piece of paper. "What?" Emerald exclaimed. "I'm a professional, sweetheart. Pay attention, maybe you learn something," Roman stated. "Why do you have this address?" "Wouldn't you like to know?" Emerald said rhetorically. "Yeah, I would. Now where have you been all day?" Roman asked. "Cleaning up your problems," Mercury said, "one of them, at least." "I had that under control," Roman said. "Who packed bags and a ticket out of Vale said otherwise," Mercury retorted. "Listen you little punk. If it were up to me, then I would take you and your little street rat friend here," and Roman started. "Do what, Roman?" a new voice questioned. Looking behind the duo, Roman saw a woman standing at 5'7" with black hair and glowing yellow-orange eyes, her fingernails painted dark red. She wore a dark red off-the-shoulders V-neck minidress with yellow designs. A blue feather-like accessory was on her right hip at the top of an open portion of her dress. The dress ended in an upside-down triangular tail in the back, ending just above her knees. There was a baseball diamond-shaped keyhole on the back, above her waist, and at the same height as her chest. The sleeves ended in a triangular shape tied around her middle finger, with the gold designs of the sleeve taking over at the wrists. She also wore black shorts underneath her dress and a black choker on her neck. She had dark glass high-heeled shoes and a jeweled anklet on her right leg. She had a black tattoo on her upper back in the keyhole of what appears to be a pair of high-heel shoes placed sole to sole. She was on the platform above them, stepping onto an automated lift, riding it down to their level. "I'd not kill them," Roman said. "Cinder," Emerald said excitedly. "I thought I made it clear that you would eliminate the would-be runaway," Cinder stated. "I was going to," Roman said. "He was going to escape to Vacuo." Mercury and I decided to take it upon ourselves to kill the rat. Emerald stated. I think he was some sort of cat, actually. Mercury pointed out. What? Like a puma? Emerald asked. Yeah, there you go. Mercury said. Quiet. Did I not specifically instruct you two to keep your hands clean while in Vale? Cinder questioned, turning to the duo. As Cinder spoke, Roman pointed a finger at the pair while silently laughing in agreement. I just thought, Emerald said. Roman used his fingers to mime having a slit throat. Don't think, obey. Cinder said. Yes, ma'am. It won't happen again. Emerald said apologetically. And you? Why wasn't this job done sooner? Cinder asked, turning to Roman. Roman grunted, motioning to his right, he motioned to his left, he motioned to behind him, ehhhhh. Sorry if I've been busy stealing every speck of dust in the kingdom. You're an inspiration to every punk with a gun and a ski mask. Mercury sarcastically said, Emerald laughing at the remark. Look round, kid. I've got this town running scared. Police camping out at every corner, dust prices through the roof, and we're sitting pretty on an old warehouse with more dust crystals, vials, and rounds than we know what to do with. Roman exclaimed, speaking of which, if you guys wouldn't mind filling me in on your grand master plan, it might make my next string of robberies go smoother. I've already lost my right-hand man because of your schemes. He yelled, throwing the newspaper in his hands to the ground near the trio. Oh Roman. Have a little of faith. Cinder said, walking over the newspaper as it lit on fire and burned until not even a single speck of ashes was left. She placed her hand on his face, you'll know what you need when you need to know. She said. Roman seemed entranced, but then looked away with a grunt. Besides, we're done with dust. Oh okay, then what now? Roman asked. We're moving. Have the White Fang clear out this building. I'll send you details and coordinates tonight. Cinder replied. Coordinates? Roman questioned. We're proceeding to phase 2. Cinder said whilst walking away, Mercury and Emerald following behind her. Roman pulled out a cigar and attempted to light it, but found that Emerald was holding his lighter. She turned back to face him and stuck her tongue out defiantly. Anbu headquarters, 9:14 p.m. An old man with short spiky black hair, bandages over his right eye, and scars, sat behind an oak desk as he stared at the 3 operatives before him. Kitsune, reporting for duty. Naruto exclaimed, standing at attention. Karasu, reporting for duty. Karasu exclaimed, doing the same as his Benteicho. Nico, reporting for duty. Nico exclaimed, standing the same as Kitsune and Karasu. The trio stood before the leader of the Ansatsu Senjutsu Takushu Butai, Special Assassination and Tactical Squad, ANBU for short. The man the trio stood before was known by the codename Overlord, one of the founding members of ANBU and veteran from the war. That alone spoke volumes about how long this man had lived, and he didn't look like he would die of age anytime. Excellent, I have a mission for you 3. Overlord said, tossing a tan folder over to the trio. Picking up the folder, Kitsune, whilst on active duty, I'm gonna call Naruto by his Anbu codename, Kitsune. Off duty, he'll just be called Naruto, look through it. The image was blurry, but showed the silhouette of a woman with glowing yellow-orange eyes. We've just been informed that a recent partner of Roman Torchwick, Cinderfall, has been spotted in the area of Vale. Your mission is to capture her alive for interrogation. Should all else fail, you are to eliminate her. Understood. Hi. The 3 operatives replied, giving a salute before disappearing. Streets of Vale, 9:43 p.m. Cinder, Mercury, and Emerald walked down the streets of Vale, enjoying the peacefulness yet at the same time on guard. Suddenly, 3 shadowy blurs passed by them, surrounding the 3 criminals in a triangular formation. The one to their left appeared to be a man wearing a porcelain mask with a raven-like design. To their right was a woman wearing a porcelain mask with a cat-like design. And standing in front of them was a man wearing a porcelain mask with a fox-like design. Cinderfall, you are wanted for questioning in relation to the wanted criminal Roman Torchwick. Kitsune said, please come with us. The response that he got was for Cinder to shoot a fireball at him, providing the criminal trio the necessary distraction to escape. All 3 went off in different directions. You go after her, Kitsune. We've got the other 2. Karasu said. Kitsune nodded his head and went off in the direction that Cinder escaped in. Looking up, Kitsune saw Cinder climbing up a ladder and onto a roof. Pulling out his twin commas, Kitsune threw one of the commas at the roof's ledge, the chain connecting the 2 weapons extending to reach the roof. With a small tug, Kitsune was pulled up onto the roof and placed his commas back at his side. Kitsune only had a fraction of a second to look up before he had to move out of the way to dodge another fireball. Charging at his target, Naruto weaved in and out of incoming projectiles as the fight became hand-to-hand combat. Dodging a punch from Cinder, Kitsune was unable to dodge one of her kicks as she sent him back, knocking his mask off in the process. Looking at the face hidden behind the mask, Cinder suppressed a small blush at seeing his face, Kitsune doing the same as he got a better look at his target. Steeling himself, Kitsune got up and lunged at Cinder, the latter dodging and continued her escape. Leaping after her, Kitsune noticed she was leading him into the commercial district of Vale, specifically a nightclub by the name of the Diamond Dust. Landing on the ground, the unmasked Kitsune saw the retreating form of Cinder enter the doors to the club. Refusing to let her escape, Kitsune opted to enter the club as well, looking around for his target. Play in for the kill, Skrillex remix. Looking around through the crowd of people as the music boomed around him, Kitsune saw Cinder smirking at him from one of the second-level platforms. He started to make his way through the cluster of people as he continued his pursuit. We can fight our desires. But when we start making fires, we get ever so hot. Whether we like it or not. Arriving at the location Kitsune saw her, the Anbu operative saw that she had left her previous location. Looking around once more, Kitsune saw the smirking form of Cinder look at him as she walked into another crowd. Trying to stay unnoticed by those around him, Kitsune maneuvered his way through the same crowd after her. They say we can love who we trust. But what is love without lust? Two hearts with accurate devotions. And what are feelings without emotions? Tazzing after Cinder, Kitsune was led into a different part of the club as people danced to the music. Unlike the last part of the club they were in, there were strobe lights instead of dim-colored lights. In all honesty, Kitsune began seeing strange lights and colors every time he blinked after a few seconds of looking around with the strobe lights going. Let's go to war to make peace. Let's be cold to create heat. Finally spotting Cinder, Kitsune started making his way over to her as the game of cat and mouse continued. I'm going in for the kill. I'm doing it for a thrill. Oh, I'm hoping you'll understand. And not let go of my hand. Ye hand, 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 ye hand. Kitsune caught up to Cinder as she turned around as another hand-to-hand battle began. And not let go. Using the combination of hand-to-hand combat, along with the effect of the strobe lights, the civilians around the two barely noticed their fight due to either being caught up in their own affairs or dismissing the notion of the two fighting to be dancing instead. And not let go of my. Retreating once again, Cinder went up the nearest staircase, leading her to the roof with Kitsune in pursuit. Even outside the club the music was heard. I hang my hopes out on the line. Will they be ready for you in time? If you leave them out too long, they'll be withered by the sun. Running away from her pursuer, Cinder evaded Kitsune's assaults. Cinder was surprisingly fast despite the fact she was wearing high heels. Let's go to war to make peace. Let's be cold to create heat. I'm going in for the kill. I'm doing it for a thrill. Oh, I'm hoping you'll understand. And not let go of my hand. Ye hand, 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 ye hand. And not let go. Seeing as they were no longer in a crowded area, Cinder launched small fireballs at Kitsune, the black-haired Uchiha dodging each of the attacks. And not let go of my. As Kitsune got closer and closer to Cinder, evading her fiery projectiles, their fight became hand-to-hand combat once more. As they threw punches and kicks at each other, their eyes met for a moment. Charcoal black eyes met glowing yellow-orange eyes as they realized how close to their proximity the other was. The two were broken out of their trance as a greenish blur passed them. Snapping out of their trance first, Cinder kicked Kitsune away and escaped alongside Mercury and Emerald, a small barely noticeable blush on her face. Woo. By the time Kitsune snapped out of his trance-like state, Cinder and her accomplices had escaped. Nico and Karasu landed beside him. What happened, Kitsune? Nico asked. I don't know, Kitsune said. Karasu threw an object at Kitsune, the latter catching the object. Looking down at what was thrown at him, Kitsune saw that it was his mask. I found this on one of the nearby rooftops. Karasu stated as Kitsune placed the mask on his head. Kitsune, Karasu, Nico, report back to HQ. Overlord said over their comlinks. But we have yet to complete the mission, Overlord. Kitsune said. Mission be damned, this new intel is more pressing than capturing Cinderfall. Now report back to HQ immediately. Overlord ordered. Yes sir, the three Anbu operatives replied. As they made their way back to Anbu headquarters, Kitsune was glad that he had his mask back on as he allowed a blush to cross over his face as he recalled his encounter with Cinder. Anbu headquarters, 11:23 p.m. Kitsune, Karasu, and Nico arrived at the Anbu headquarters, heading to the mission room as instructed via comlink. Entering the room, the trio noticed at least a dozen other Anbu operatives present. Overlord looked up from the folder he was reading. Ah, good, you're here. Now we can begin. Overlord said. What could be so important that it requires all 15 members of the Kobo squad? Kitsune asked, looking around the room to see the other members of the CrimsonKyuubiSage, Assault and Defense Squad, Kobo for short, present. Our members in the Suin division have found out about a threat to all of Vital. Overlord stated, in 3 weeks' time, a large-scale invasion will take place during the Beacon tournament. Anbu headquarters, 11:26 p.m. The group of Anbu stood silent as the new information sunk in. Even with his mask on, one could easily see that Kitsune was surprised at the revelation. What? Kitsune exclaimed. You heard me clearly, Kitsune. Our intel has revealed a hidden threat to this nation. Our nation. Overlord said. What are your orders, Overlord? Kitsune asked, his voice remaining indifferent. You and the rest of the Kobo division are to take new identities for the duration of the tournament. In the best case scenario, you will discreetly eliminate the threat before the invasion begins. Overlord stated. And the worst? Kitsune asked. Worst case scenario, we evacuate all civilians in the area and proceed with Counter-Strike Protocol Delta. Overlord replied grimly before he steeled his expression, understood. Hi. The group of Anbu chorused. Dismissed. Overlord said, the group leaving as ordered. Kitsune. He said Anbu operative stopping in his tracks, I hope I don't need to remind you to not bring your emotions into this. No need to, sir. Kitsune replied after a few seconds of silence. After his statement, Kitsune left the room. Beacon Academy, the next day, 12:37 p.m. Osmond stood in his office high up in the sky as the professor of the academy and his assistant, Glinda Goodwitch, watched a large, unnerving ship land outside. 2 bullheads hovered above various students as they mingled and mulled about their daily activities. Ironwood certainly loves bringing his work wherever he travels. Glinda said. Well, running an academy and a military makes him a busy man. Osmond said as 3 more bullheads flew by, but yes, those are a bit of an eyesore. A chirping beep sound repeated. Osmond turned to see a hollow message access requested appear on his desk. Come in. Osmond said. As soon as the words left his mouth, the doors slid open to reveal a man with black hair, with some areas being silver or gray in coloration, while his eyebrows were black in color and what appeared to be a strip of silver metal above his right eyebrow. He wore a white overcoat with a gray undercoat alongside a red tie and a white glove on his right hand. This man was James Ironwood, headmaster of Atlas Academy and general of Atlas's military. Osmond. Ironwood exclaimed cordially. Hello, General. Osmond said, standing at attention. Please, drop the formalities. Ironwood said as they shook hands. Glinda approached as well. It's been too long. And Glinda. It has certainly been too long since we last met. Oh, James. Glinda said, giving a personable wave and then dropped all pleasantries. I'll be outside. She said, walking away. Well, she hasn't changed a bit. Ironwood stated. So, what in the world has brought you all the way down from Atlas? Osmond asked, turning to his desk and picking up a mug and a kettle, pouring as he spoke. Headmasters don't typically travel with their students for the Vital Festival. He said, turning and offering the cup to Ironwood, the latter accepting the mug. Well, you know how much I love Vale this time of year. Ironwood said, pulling a canteen from his inside coat pocket and pouring its contents into his mug. Besides, with you hosting, I thought that this might be a good opportunity for us to catch up. He said as Osmond walked around to his desk, kettle and a new mug in hand. I can certainly appreciate the quality time between friends, however, a small fleet outside my window has me concerned. Osmond said as he sat down and poured himself some coffee. Well, concerned is what brought them here. Ironwood said. I understand that travel between kingdoms has become increasingly difficult. Osmond stated. Oz, you and I both know why I brought those men. Ironwood stated. Osmond took a drink and placed his mug down on his desk. We are in a time of peace. Shows of power like this are just going to give off the wrong impression. Osmond said. Ironwood placed his mug down as well. But if what Crow said is true, Ironwood said. If what Crow said is true, then we will handle it tactfully. Osmond said, holding up an index finger to emphasize, it's the Vital Festival. A time to celebrate unity and peace. So I suggest that you not scare people by transporting hundreds of soldiers halfway across the continent. I'm just being cautious. Ironwood countered. As am I. Which is why we will continue to train the best huntsmen and huntresses we can. Osmond said. Believe me, I am. Ironwood said as he turned and walked away. Halfway to the door, he stopped and looked back at Osmond. But ask yourself this. Do you honestly believe your children can win a war? I hope they never have to. Osmond murmured. They won't have to. A new voice said, not today. Turning to the source of the new voice, the 2 men's eyes widened in shock at the new person. Well, it certainly has been a long time since we last met. What brings you here? Ironwood asked. The same reason your soldiers are here. The man said. So you've decided to do that protocol? Osmond said. Your soldiers won't be necessary, General. My operatives are already on the ground. The man said. Humph, just because you've brought them does not give me reason to withdraw my soldiers. Ironwood said. Give me until the start of the Beacon tournament. If they haven't stopped this before it even begins by the time the tournament starts, then you have full authority to send in as many soldiers as you want. The man said, but until then, we have much to discuss. Whatever you say, Ironwood said. Danzō. Beacon Academy Library, 1:16 p.m. In the Beacon Academy Library, Team RWBY was sitting at a table and playing Risk. Remnant Edition. Weiss, Yang, and Blake waited for their team leader to make her move. Blake appeared to be distracted. Alright. Ruby exclaimed, pointing at Yang. Yang Xiaolong, prepare your kingdom for battle. Bring it on. Yang exclaimed, thrusting her elbow down as she balled her fist. I deploy the Elysian Air Fleet. Ruby yelled, slapping her card down on the table. Yang feigned a look of shock. Looks like I get to fly right over your Ursi and attack your walls directly. She exclaimed, making noises like airplanes flying and bombing as she made a bird with her hands. You fiend. Yang exclaimed, feigning indignance as she pointed at Ruby. And since Atlas is part of Mantle, my repair time is only 1 turn. Ruby said, ducking her head at one end of the table as she spoke, peeking her head up after finishing her statement. Yang laughed arrogantly, surprising Ruby. Pretty sneaky, sis, but you just activated my trap card. Yang exclaimed, raising a card, causing Ruby to be visually disturbed. Giant Nevermore. She exclaimed, slamming the card in her hand down on the table, if I roll a 7 or higher, fatal feathers will slice your fleet in 2. On the table, a little Nevermore was seen flying over a field of swords impaled in the ground as Yang spoke. But, if you roll a 6 or lower, the Nevermore will turn on your own forces. Ruby stated, pointing at Yang. Back on the table, the Nevermore could be seen turning back toward Yang. That's just a chance I'm willing to take. Yang said, the two glaring at each other. Meanwhile, with Team JNPR, Ren and Purah were studying, John was reading a comic book, and Nora was drooling and talking in her sleep. Yang was suddenly heard shouting triumphantly. Nuo. My fearless soldiers. Ruby exclaimed. Most of them were androids. Yang stated. Goodbye my friends, you will be avenged. Ruby said. Not until I draw my rewards. Which are double this round thanks to the Mistral trade route. Yang said, causing Ruby to gag in frustration. Oh, and what's this? The smugglers of Windheld. Yang added. Ruby gagged twice more. I say, it looks like I'm taking 2 cards in my hand. The Nevermore player piece was tossed over John's shoulder as Purah confiscated his comic book in exchange for a textbook. Purah began reading the comic book as another piece bounced off of John's head. Have you no heart? Ruby cried out, collapsing on the table comically crying, Nuo. Well, Weiss, it's your turn. Yang said. I have absolutely no idea what's going on. Weiss said. Yang slid up beside Weiss and placed her hand on her shoulder. Look, it's easy. You're playing as Vacuo, which means that all Vacuo-based cards come with a bonus. Yang stated. That sounds dumb. Weiss said as Yang began looking through Weiss's cards. See, you've got Sandstorm, Desert Scavenger. Oh. Yang exclaimed, pulling up a card to show Weiss, Resourceful Raider. See, now you can take Ruby's discard air fleet and put it in your hand. Okay. Weiss said. And since Vacuo warriors have endurance against natural-based hazards, you can use Sandstorm to disable my ground forces and simultaneously infiltrate my kingdom. Yang said, pointing a finger at Weiss. Just know that I will not forget this declaration of war. She added, pulling away and returning to her seat. And that means, Weiss unsurely said. You're just 3 moves away from conquering Remnant. Ruby answered. Weiss stood up as a thunderclap was heard accompanying Weiss's overjoyed psychotic laughter. Yes. Fear the almighty power of my forces. Cower as they pillage your home and weep as they take your children from your very arms. Weiss exclaimed. Trap card, Yang said, holding a card in her hand. Huh? Weiss questioned. Your armies have been destroyed. Yang said, shuffling the pieces on the board, Weiss's pieces disappearing in a puff of smoke. I hate this game of emotions we play. Weiss said, slumping in her chair and tearing up. Ruby hopped into her lap. Stay strong, Weiss. We'll make it through this together. Ruby cried out. Shut up. Weiss exclaimed, pulling Ruby into a hug, don't touch me. Alright Blake, you're up. Yang said, putting her arms up behind her head. Oh, sorry, what am I doing? Blake asked. You're playing as Vale, trying to conquer the kingdoms of Remnant. Yang stated. Right. Blake said. Hey. Can I play? John asked, approaching the table. Sorry John, we've already got 4 people. Ruby said. Besides, this game requires a certain level of tactical cunning that I seriously doubt that you possess. Weiss said. You attacked your own naval fleet 2 turns ago. Yang pointed out, causing Weiss to groan in annoyance. Bring it on, Ice Queen. I'll have you know that I have been told that I am a natural-born leader. John exclaimed. I who? Your mother? Weiss questioned. A and Purra. John added. Hello again. Purra said, waving at the group. Come on, let me play your hand for a turn. John pleaded, both hands folded together. I'm not trusting you with the good citizens of Vacuo. Weiss exclaimed. Why not? You've trusted me with way more important stuff before. I mean, you told us all that Blake is secretly a fa. John started, but was stopped as Purra darted over and slapped a hand over his mouth. Fun-loving person, whom we all admire and respect. Purra stated, John laughing nervously. Everyone looked nervously at Blake, who appeared obviously annoyed that her secret was out. Right. That. Ladies, enjoy your battle. John said with a bow as the blonde leader and his teammate walked away. Sup losers? Sun said, appearing next to Team RWBY as he held his fingers in a peace sign. Hey Sun. Ruby greeted. Ruby, Yang, Blake Ice Queen. Sun said. Why does everyone keep calling me that? Weiss questioned. I never got a chance to formally introduce you to my old friend. Aren't libraries for reading? Neptune asked. Thank you. Ren said, throwing his arms up. Pancakes. Nora exclaimed, popping her head up. Shut up. Don't be a nerd. Sun said. Ja. Intellectual, okay. Thank you. I'm Neptune. Neptune said, giving a wave as he introduced himself. So Neptune, where are you from? Weiss asked. Haven. Neptune replied, approaching Weiss. And I don't believe I've caught your name, Snow Angel. I'm Weiss. Weiss said as she introduced herself. Are you kidding me? John complained. Pleasure to meet you. Neptune said. I never took you as the board game playing type. Sun stated. Right, well, I think I'm done playing actually. I'll see you guys later. Blake said, pushing Sun aside as she left the room. Women. Nora said, shrugging her shoulders. Team RWBY dormitory, 7:23 p.m. Blake stared out the team's window at the night sky as he sat with her knees folded to her chest on her bed. Brothers of the White Fang, why are you aiding this scum? Blake's voice echoed in her head as she remembered her latest encounter with the White Fang. The White Fang and I are going in on a joint business venture together. Roman's voice spoke, his words echoing in her head, along with the sounds of battle including slashes, grunts, gunfire, and Torchwick's laughter. Flashback start. The scene shifted to show Blake sitting in an interviewing office as Osbin entered alongside Kitsune. Well, this has certainly been an eventful evening. Osbin spoke, Blake quietly acknowledging his statement. Osbin sat in the chair opposite to Blake as Kitsune stood to the right of the headmaster of Beacon Academy. I'm sure that after a night of thwarting attempted robbery, you probably just want to go home and take a nap. Kitsune spoke, but you have a visitor here that wants to have a little talk with you. Of course. Blake said. Wonderful. As you know, in order to enroll at my academy, students must first pass a rigorous entrance exam. Most applicants spend years of preparation training at one of the many combat schools. You are one of the few that did not. And you passed the exam with flying colors. Osbin stated. I was raised outside the kingdoms. If you can't fight, you can't survive. Blake stated. Well, you have most certainly survived, Blake. I admire your drive. And I am proud to run a school that accepts individuals from all walks of life. Rich, poor, human Francis, Osbin said, taking a sip of his coffee, while Blake glared at him. Why do you wear that bow, Blake? Why hide who you are? Osbin asked. You may be willing to accept the faunus, Professor Osbin, but your species is not. Blake commented. True, but we are continuing to take strides to lessen the divide. Osbin retorted. With all due respect, you need to start taking some larger strides. Until then, I'd rather avoid any unnecessary attention. I want people to see me for who I am, not what I am. Blake said. And what are you? Osbin questioned. I don't understand what you're asking. Blake said. How did you know the White Fang would be at the shipyard tonight? Kitsune asked, attempting to subtly interrogate the girl. I didn't. I just happened to be at the right place at the right time. Blake responded. You wouldn't have been the first, Kitsune said, but before he could continue, Osbin held his hand up to stop the Anbu operative. What happened tonight was not an isolated incident. I may be your headmaster, but I am also a huntsman, and it is my sworn duty to protect this world from the forces that conspire against it. Blake, are you sure there is nothing you would like to tell us? Osbin asked. I'm sure. Blake said. Very well. Thank you for your time, Ms. Belladonna. Osbin said, standing up and heading to the door. He stopped at the door and turned to Blake. If you ever need to talk to me, please don't hesitate to ask. He said, exiting the room. Kitsune had yet to leave the room as he leaned against the wall behind him. I believe we haven't properly met yet. Kitsune said. Hi, my name's Blake. What's yours? Blake asked with a dull monotone voice. I'm not at liberty to tell you my name. Kitsune said, but you can call me Kitsune. Well, Kitsune, what do you want? Blake asked. Just to talk. Kitsune said, after all, considering that you're my niece's teammate, I'd rather hear from a close source how they're doing, rather than just profiles. Niece's teammate, Blake questioned. Before Kitsune could reply, he froze and placed a hand to the comlink on the side of his head. Hi, Overlord, Kitsune said, pushing off the wall he was leaning on. Well, I hate to cut our little conversation short, but I have new orders. He said, walking to the door. He stopped halfway through the doorway and turned back to Blake. Till we meet again, Blake Belladonna. Flashback end. Ugh, we should have never let him play. Yang complained as the 3 other members of Team RWBY joined Blake in their dorm room. You're just mad cause the new guy beat you. See, if you had just attacked when I told you none of this would have happened. Ruby said. As the 3 entered the room, Blake began to approach the door to leave. Stop. Y said, pointing at Blake, the latter's hand retracting from the doorknob. Lately you've been quite antisocial and moody. Have you met Blake? Yang questioned. Which I get is kind of your thing, but you've been doing it more than usual. Which quite frankly is unacceptable. You made a promise to me, to all of us, that you would let us know if something was wrong. Y said, flipping through the air as 6 copies of her emblem flew through the air. So, Blake Belladonna, what is wrong? She asked, pointing her finger at Blake again. Only this time, she was balancing precariously on a chair's back feet. She quickly placed the chair away and returned to stand near the girls. I don't understand how everyone can be so calm. Blake said. You're still thinking about Torchwick? Ruby asked as she approached Blake. Torchwick, the White Fang, all of it. Something big is happening and no one is doing anything about it. Blake exclaimed. Osmond told us not to worry. Between the police and the huntsmen, I'm sure they can handle it. Yang stated. Don't forget about those mysterious Anbu. Ruby added, I heard rumors that some of those people captured Raul Rodriguez a few days ago. The FFT, as if. Y said, everybody knows that it was the police that caught Raul, the news confirmed it. Well, you guys think they can handle it, but I'm not. They don't know the White Fang like I do. Blake said. Okay, between blowing up nightclubs, stopping thieves, and fighting for freedom, I'm sure the 3 of you think that you're all ready to go out and apprehend these ne'er-do-wells. Y stated. Who? Ruby questioned. But let me once again be the voice of reason. We're students. We're not ready to handle this sort of situation. Y said. Well yeah, but Ruby admitted. We're not ready. Weiss exclaimed. And we may never be ready. Our enemies aren't just going to sit around and wait for graduation day. Blake yelled, pointing towards the door. They're out there, somewhere, planning their next move, and none of us know what it is, but it's coming. Whether we're ready or not. Okay, all in favor of becoming the youngest huntresses to single-handedly take down a corrupt organization conspiring against the Kingdom of Vale, say aye. Ruby said, raising her hand and doing random gestures while looking manic. Meanwhile, in various unknown locations, Nico, Hebe, Karasu, and Kitsune simultaneously sneezed viciously. Yes. I love it when you're feisty. Yang exclaimed, pumping her fist enthusiastically. Well, I suppose it could be fun. Y said. None of you said aye. Ruby complained. Alright then, we're in this together. Blake said. Let's hatch a plan. Ruby exclaimed as she began gesturing. Yeah. Yang exclaimed, making double guns with her hands at Ruby. I left my board game at the library. Ruby gasped as she began freaking out. We're doomed. Y said, placing her hand to her head. I'll be right back. Ruby exclaimed, running out of the room and down the hallway. I'll go after her. Y sighed as she too left the room. Suddenly, Ruby collided with someone as she darted through the hallway. Oof. Oh gee, she stammered, looking up at who she ran into. Sorry. Are you okay? I'm fine. Emerald said, offering her hand to Ruby. Mercury stood beside her. Just watch where you're going. Oh, right, sorry. Ruby said as Emerald helped her to her feet. I'm Ruby. Are you new? Visiting from Haven, actually. Cinder said, stepping out from behind Emerald. Ruby stared at her for a moment but dismissed the familiarity that the woman had. Ooh. You're here for the festival. But exchange students have their own dormitory. Ruby stated. I guess we just got turned around. Mercury said. Don't worry, I guess it happens all the time. Ruby said, Mercury and Emerald walking past her. Your building is just east of here. Thanks. Cinder said, walking past Ruby, gesturing in acknowledgement. Maybe we'll see you around. Yeah, maybe. Ruby exclaimed, waving at the trio. Oh, and welcome to Beacon. Back with Weiss, said girl dashed through the hallways in search of her childish team leader. Despite being the least unbalanced team member, this did not stop her from crashing into another person. Oof. Watch where you go. Weiss yelled. Hey, you're the one who crashed into me. The person said. Weiss looked up to see a tall teenage boy with spiky blonde hair, black eyes, and 3 whisker marks on each cheek. All in all, the person she had ran into could be considered handsome, causing her to blush slightly. Sorry. Weiss stammered. The man just smiled and offered a hand to the girl, which she accepted. I'm Weiss. What's your name? I'm Menma Uzumaki. Menma said, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too. Weiss said. I haven't really seen you around here before. Weiss stated. We're visiting from Vacuo, we just got a little lost. A new voice said. Coming out from behind Menma was a young woman with straight purple hair that reached down to her waist, brown eyes, fair skin, and a shade of red lipstick. She wore a light gray t-shirt, black pants, and dark shinobi sandals. Hi, I'm Kino Namoto. The woman said. Kino. Menma. Where'd you guys run off to? Another feminine voice called out. Looking behind the two, Weiss saw a tall woman, not as tall as Menma or Kino, but still tall, with light brown, pupilless eyes, black hair with a blue tint to it styled in a short spiky, fan ponytail, and light skin. She wore a tan overcoat with a purple inseam over a fitted mesh bodysuit that stretched from her neck down to her thighs. She also wore a dark orange miniskirt as well as a small pendant that looked like a snake fang on a thick cord, a wristwatch, pale gray shin guards, and a dark blue belt around her waist that connected to her skirt and had an appendage-like sash. Takako. We're just going off to the dorm rooms. Kino said. Sure you were, Takako said. She then noticed Weiss standing where she was. Oh, hey. Who's the gaki? Takako, this is Weiss. Weiss, this is Takako. Menma said, introducing the two to each other. Must you be so loud, Takako? A male voice said. Coming from the direction Takako came from was a young man with onyx eyes, light skin, and jet black hair pulled back with a red elastic in a low ponytail which extended to his shoulder blades. He also had center-parted bangs that framed his face, extending to his chin, and tear troughs under his eyes. He wore a black shirt along with dark gray pants with bandages around his ankles and black sandals. Yugaku Ishikawa, how it wounds me that you have so little faith in me to not make a flashy entrance. Takako said with a mock-hurt look. Back on track, do you know which way it is to the dorm rooms for the Vacuo exchange students? Menma asked. Take the next left and keep heading in that direction, you'll end up at the Vacuo dorm rooms. Weiss replied. Thanks. I guess we'll see you around. Menma said. The four began walking in the direction Weiss pointed them to. Welcome to Beacon. Weiss said. The screen began to fade to black as the credits began to roll. Play never change, Naruto Shippuden ending 30, and I'm ending version, not the full version. Hashide Momo Kawarazu. The scene changed to a shot of a rocky stream as the water flowed onward. The scene suddenly changed to the front gates of Beacon Academy as the sun barely shined, indicating it was in the early morning. Onitsuyoi Nami Nai Mo Sakurao. The scene shifted into Professor Osborne's office, though the man in question was not seen as the sun shined down on the area. Soko Nai wa Nakama, Haruka Kanata. A small garden was seen on the balcony of one of the team's dorm rooms. Ita Subika or no Takara. The picture changed from the balcony to a ground shot of the air from one of Beacon's walkways as a flock of birds flew by. Konosori Habatateku. The image changed to an aerial shot of the clouds as that same flock of birds flew away, only at a different angle. Orkara Shinjiro Nadanairu. The faces of Team RWBY and Team JNPR faded into existence, starting in order from Ruby, Weiss, Blake, Yang, John, Nora, Pura, and lastly Ren. Toki nai wa warai nai da Donafumaru to Hanawasateru. The 8 students were then seen to be standing in a cemetery, standing in front of a particular headstone. Though the name of the person was not seen, it was obvious that the dead person was important to the 8 students. As the music's volume increased, the image slowly faded into white. At Kimi Takara. Ananai Fumarite Mo Sateta Hana. The white screen soon turned into a horizontal widescreen shot of the 4 members of Team RWBY, posing for a pleasant picture. The background consisted of a partially cloudy sky with bright green trees and a mountain range in the far distance. The image slowly panned right before changing once again. No Unai Mato Takaku. Sorgan Aniori Mo Chikara Hinatsu. The image shifted to a left-side vertical widescreen shot of Sun's team standing in front of a large building. Scarlet and Sage appeared to be staring off into the distance, while Neptune and Sun stared at the camera, the latter being in front of his 3 teammates. The picture seemed to be panning upward as the music continued. Aitsu no bun made Sayoku Ichide. Ernai mo make night Sayoi Ishide. The image changed once again into a right-side vertical widescreen high shot of Team JNPR smiling at the camera. John sat to the right of Pura while Nora and Ren were standing. The picture seemed to have been taken while the four were outside, as a shadow was cast over from a tree. Like the two images before, the camera began panning downward in a left diagonal direction. Susum Kido Susumeru. Ermo Midakontai Sekai wo Tsukure. The picture changed into a high widescreen horizontal shot of various members of ANBU. Of these people, Taka, Usagi, Kuma, Teiko, Tora, Ondori, and Kamidori were present. The image began panning left slowly. Hoakanai Soba nai Iru Kajiri. Wawari nai wa Nakama Yafumiri. The image changed to reveal Nico, Hebe, and Inu standing on top of a tall building as they looked down at the streets of Vale, as various civilians were frozen in place, apparently going about their daily activities. The image began panning right slowly. Sono Chikaru ga Michishiru nai Naru. Mina Kermo Rada Kono Ti no Love. The image changed once again to reveal 6 people smiling at the camera. From left to right, there was a tall woman with auburn-colored hair that went past her shoulders, James Ironwood, Danzō Shimura, a tall man with dark ash blonde hair with a few patches of gray, Professor Osborne, and Glinda Goodwitch. The image slowly panned right before being replaced with a slightly glowing image of 2 hands fist bumping. Konomachi nai fuku kase nai noru. Uruwamada hodo tuku. An image of Naruto was seen as the black, spiky-haired man was sitting on a cliffside as he looked at Beacon Academy off in the distance. At the second line, the image zoomed in on Naruto. Emo Shitara Madara ended. The Karasakebu Kono ko Carrera made. The image shifted into a dark shot of Cinder from the waist down, running off to an unknown location. The image rapidly changed to a picture of Naruto with his eyes closed before going back to Cinder, only this time, one could see her face as a light was cast down, so that the left side of her face was visible. Her right eye was also visible, but that was because of the yellow-orange glow being emitted from it. The picture shifted once again to back when Naruto and Cinder were fighting back at the diamond dust, specifically back when the two's eyes met, a small blush visible on both their faces. The image faded into white as it got smaller and was replaced with the image of Naruto opening his eyes and his facial expression hardening as he became serious. Hono sekai wa mieramano bakarita. Hoai ga jibunjishin wo kizutsuketa. The image quickly changed back into the river before 3 drops of water plopped into the river, causing ripples to occur where the droplets hit. The image changed to show Cinder looking at the cliffside of the Emerald Forest as she stood on top of one of the building in Beacon Academy. The picture changed into a different angle shot of Cinder with her eyes closed as her hair swayed in a gentle breeze. She opened her eyes and stared off at the cliffside. Hirasada yami no saki nai mi edamano. Batsu sugu nai misu edamamata. The gentle breeze caused leaves to blow past Cinder, causing the image to transition into Naruto staring down at Beacon. Unknowingly, the two were staring directly at each other. Anasanai. The image changed one last time to reveal a glowing light background as Naruto and Cinder had their hands linked together, their eyes closed as a small smile was present on both their faces. The image was black when suddenly, a burst of white from the left started the opening. Play Gurren no Yumiya by Linked Horizon, Shinjeki no Kyojin opening 1 theme. Cinder das Essen. 9. Sign der Jaeger. The spiral symbol of the Anbu was seen in what appeared to be blood, seeing as part of the symbol appeared to have a dripping effect. Behind this symbol was a plain tan wall. Suddenly, the image was transitioned by a white light fade out from the center. The image that replaced it was of the word Shakunetsu no Koi covered in and surrounded by flames. The title words had the flames covering them smothered out as the image zoomed out. Fumareta hana no nami mo shirazu nai. The title image was pulled up as the picture transitioned into the aftermath of a battlefield. Standing in the aftermath, going from left to right, was an unmasked Yugao Yuzuki, Naruto Uchiha, Itachi Uchiha, and Anko Midarashi. Continuing from there was the masked forms of Taka, Usagi, Kuma, Inu, Teiko, Tora, Ondori, and Kamidori. Around the group was various discarded weapons impaled in the ground, along with a few recently deceased bodies. Inaichida Tori wa Keizo Michiwabiru. The image zoomed in on Yugao, Naruto, Itachi, and Anko. The 4 were looking down at the ground, a serious look on each of their faces. Anada Tokoro Danani mo Kawaranai. The image changed to a rooftop view of a Elysian paladin moving to the left. The picture changed once again to reveal an army of Elysian paladins charging down a large walkway. Ima Okaru no wa Tadakao Kakugo da. The battalion of Anbu operatives was seen standing in front of Overlord from a bird's eye view. The Anbu did a salute before the image focused on Naruto, who had his mask off. Behind him was Itachi, Yugao, Anko, and the other Anbu operatives. All of them pulled out their weapons before the image changed to atop one of the buildings found on the Beacon Academy campus, the members of Anbu jumping off said building and charging at the paladins below. Shikabane Fumiko Etsu Sumu Ishio Warau Butio. The image transitioned to a light green outline of a grinning Roman Torchwick. This was soon replaced by a rapid shift of images starting with Nico, then Karasu, then Hibi, and finally Kitsune. Echiku no ane Kyogi no Hanesha Sugera no Jiuo. The large portion of wall that encased Beacon Academy was suddenly blown up, followed by another wall. Naruto was in midair as debris was blown around him, a look of shock on his face being quickly replaced by surprise. Hirawara Kutsujoku wa Hangiki no Kaushi da Jiheki no Sono Kanada Imono o Hafuru Jager. The large-scale battle appeared to be taking place. Anko fought back against 5 different White Fang members, Itachi and Yugao were expertly cutting through various White Fang members as well, and Naruto was jumping from roof to roof before jumping high into the air and slashing at a lone paladin, causing it to explode as he kicked off the machine. Adabashiru Shadu nai Sono mi Oyaki Nagara Tasagar nai Hai o Yagatsu. Various vital soldiers were seen in a new battlefield, firing off cannons at what was most likely their enemy. Naruto was suddenly seen, his clothes very damaged from battle, as he had a light blue ethereal flame covering his hand and charged at an equally worn Cinder, who had a bright orange flame dancing across her hand as well. The image stopped mid-charge for dramatic effect. Urin no Yumiya. The Anbu symbol appeared on a banner dancing in the wind. This was soon replaced by an image of a tall man with dark ash blonde hair with a few patches of grey jumping up in the air, a large scythe in his hands. This was replaced by an image of various Beacon students jumping out of hiding in between buildings, including Team RWBY, JNPR, CRDL, and CFVY. The image changed to a flyby, from left to right, of the various White Fang members, before being mixed in with semi-transparent images of various people fighting. The final image was of Naruto, Yugao, Itachi, and Anko looking towards the sun. The image faded to black as the chapter began. News broadcast. Thank you, Jim. A woman wearing a black and lavender outfit said. She had a pale white complexion, white hair, and amber eyes. This was Lisa Lavender, newsreader of the Vailanu network. A new image appeared on the upper corner of the screen, the image itself being of 2 men appearing to be in a debate. In other news, tension between Vacuo and Vital is at an all-time high. Both sides are arming themselves for what appears to be the next big conflict since the Third World War. Only 4 months ago did the world bear witness to the events of Astor Airport massacre. Over 500 casualties have been reported from that day, of those 500 included the lives of 400 Vacuo citizens. Security camera footage indicates there were 4 men responsible for the killings, but were unable to identify the killers. Rumors of the Kingdom of Vital's involvement have yet to be confirmed or denied by government officials, as the whole thing has been kept quiet, leading to this high tensions between the 2 kingdoms. Vacuo Dormitory, Beacon Academy, 9:19 p.m. Menma, Kino, Takako, and Fugaku were currently in their assigned dorm room. The moment the door was closed, the 4 occupants of the room changed their expression to a serious one. With a small pulse of aura, the 4 students were enveloped in a puff of smoke. In place of them was 4 Anbu operatives, Kitsune, Nico, Hibi, and Karasu. All 4 were dressed in their full Anbu outfit, masks and all. Kitsune had his 2 kamas at his side, Nico appeared to have a katana on her back, Hibi had a pair of elongated knives with triggers at the hilts, and Karasu had a tanto strapped to his back. Time to begin our investigation. Kitsune stated, you each have your orders, we meet back here at 0100 hours. Hi, Taicho. The 3 other members replied, standing at attention before blurring out of existence. But Yang and Neptune, 9:36 p.m. In the ruined parts of Vale, the sound of an engine was heard as a yellow motorcycle pulled into a street and stopped just short of the curb. Stepping off the motorcycle and taking off her helmet, Yang began walking to her intended destination. The blonde-haired girl had a change of outfits as she was now wearing a collared cream top over a black shirt, and over top of the former was a black article of clothing that consisted of a raised collar, a strap across her collarbone, and mid-length sleeves that were gold at the end. Around her neck was a pendant that had a smooth round purple gem set in a round piece of metal that had a point coming off the left and right sides and a small oval shape coming from the bottom. She had a pair of crooked black belts with gold accents across her hips and a purple piece of fabric with lilac lace around the edges hanging from her left hip. She had a dark gray article of clothing coming from down from under her cream top that was either a miniskirt or part of her black shirt. It had vertical belted straps going down into her thigh black stocking, which had a burning heart emblem printed in yellow on the outer side of each leg near the top and a row of 4 gold pyramid studs above each knee. She wore a pair of black boots with a series of belted straps across them. On the back of each boot at the top was a large white ribbon tied into a bow. Today was the day that Team RWBY would begin their investigation into the White Fang and Roman Torchwick. Ruby and Weiss went off to the cross-continental transmit. Blake and Sun were heading to one of the White Fang recruitment locations to see what they could find, and lastly, Yang and Neptune were heading off to a familiar club to see what information they could get out of a certain club owner. "Come on, my friends, ride in here," Yang said. "Cool," Neptune said, sounding dizzy as he still sat on the motorcycle with a petrified expression of terror on his face. Shaking his head, Neptune got up and looked around worriedly. "And where exactly is here?" Inside the club, a man wearing a white dress shirt with a black vest over the top, a red tie, black gloves, and black dress pants, adjusted his cuffs as various men wearing black suits with red shades stocked bottles, carried boxes, and otherwise stood around on the dance floor. The man had gray eyes, short black hair, and a black beard with mustache. This was Hashirama, aka Junior, owner of the club. "Close the door, she's coming," one of the henchmen shouted as he ran inside. He and another henchman proceeded to roll the doors shut and keep them closed with their bodies. "What are you two idiots doing?" Junior asked, walking out from the bar. The henchman shouted incoherently, his voice barely heard over the club's music. The man's shouting was cut off by an explosion, knocking them to the ground and forcing the doors open, allowing a familiar blonde-haired girl to walk in through the smoke as I Burns started playing. "Guess who's back?" Yang said, continuing to smile and pose as 8 guns were pointed in her face, with an equal number of angry henchmen behind them. Though this didn't faze her, she stopped and glared at the recording studio, where the track was messing up until the frightened bare-headed DJ took the needle off the record and retreated back under the table. "Yeah, so could you define friend for me?" Neptune asked, appearing behind Yang as the henchmen continued hoisting their guns. "Stop, stop. Nobody shoot," Junior exclaimed in an attempt to stop another incident like last time happening. He began cutting his way through the crowd of goons, straightening his tie as he made it to the front. "Blondie, you're here. Why? You still owe me a drink," Yang said, grabbing Junior by the arm and dragging him to the bar through the hired guns. "Whoa ho ho ho, what a woman," Neptune said. He broke from his love-struck staring to see 2 girls. One was a teenage girl with long black hair and pale green eyes, highlighted by heavy cyan makeup. She wore a white strapless dress with cyan lining. The second girl was a teenage girl with short black hair and pale green eyes, highlighted by heavy red makeup. She wore a red strapless dress with black lining. These 2 were twin sisters Melanie and Melcia Malachite. "Sup?" Neptune said. "Humph." Melanie and Melcia said in sync, walking away, noses in the air. "Whatever. But Hebe." In a dimly lit room, one man sat on a simple chair, hands and feet tied as he struggled against his restraints. "Fui in here, I thought you'd be more fun to play with," a sadistic voice called out from the shadows. "Please. Mercy," the man exclaimed. Getting a better look at the person in question, one could see the bags, crust and bloodshot look of his eyes. This, along with his slight sweating and pale skin, indicated the man hadn't slept much. The most noticeable features of this man was the fact that he had bull-like features. 2 horns were on the sides of his head, and laying on a nearby table was a demonic-like visor. "Tell me what I want to know, and I'll consider it," the voice said. Walking out of the shadows, Hebe pulled out one of her knives and held it up in a menacing manner. Hidden behind her mask was a sadistic gleam in her eyes. Alright. I'll talk," the man said frantically, causing Hebe to slump slightly. "Oh, you sure you don't want to play?" Hebe asked. "Just let me live," the man said. "Then start talking," Hebe said, pulling the chair the man was in up close as she stomped her foot near the man's family jewels, causing him to yelp slightly. "With Blake and Son." Meanwhile with Blake and Son, Blake's fingers traced 3 scratch marks on a wall, before peeking around its corner and seeing a pair of horned faunas as they were ushered into a building by a bearded man. Her outfit had undergone a change of attire. Blake now wore a white V-neck zip-up shirt that was black along the bottom and had mid-length sleeves. Her belladonna flower emblem was printed in off-white on the left side of her shirt. She wore black pants that had a vertical gray stripe on the outer side of each leg, and she wore a black belt with them. Attached to the inner side of the belt was a black, somewhat curved banner-like piece of fabric that hung from the back and extended forward to her hips. On the underside of this was a thinner, longer, similarly shaped purple piece of fabric. Her black high-heel boots came halfway up her calves and had a pair of belted straps across them. She still wore her black ribbons on her arms and her black bow over top her cat ears. "This is it," Blake said. "You sure?" Son asked as Blake glared at him and started moving towards the entrance while unfastening her bow. "You know, I'm just gonna take your word for it." The 2 began walking inside the building, not noticing the pair of eyes cautiously watching them. "Hey Karasu?" a voice asked. "Yes Nico," Karasu said. "Just how did we get stuck with babysitting duty?" Nico questioned. "I think it has something to do with that mission to the Northern Territory last month," Karasu said. The two Anbu continued to observe the duo as they infiltrated the group of recruits rather easily. That reminds me, I've been meaning to ask someone about this. Why do we wear the masks? Nico asked. I forgot you're new to Anbu. Karasu said, but to answer your question, it's to hide our identities. But why hide who we are if what we're doing is right? Nico questioned. Other than to hide our identities, the masks are a symbol. We become the monsters that we fight, but still retain our humanity. To fight for the light, we strike from the shadows. That is the motto of the Anbu. Karasu explained. Then why are the masks animals? Nico asked. The animals represent the less desirable side of humanity. What we do can be considered inhumane, so we become just that. Karasu stated. Before their conversation could continue, the duo noticed a ranking member of the White Fang speak. Thank you all for coming. For those of you who are joining us for the first time tonight, allow me to introduce a very special comrade of ours. I can assure you, he is the key to obtaining what we have fought for so long. The White Fang lieutenant exclaimed. The dark pants and brown shoes stepped forward before the orange tip of a certain cane tapped on the stage. Smiling confidently at the crowd, despite the protests from said crowd, was Roman Torchwick. Thank you, Roman said, waving mockingly. As he spoke, a woman with pink and brown hair walked out from behind the stage. Please, hold your applause. What's a human doing here? An antler Fronis in the crowd called out, pointing at Roman. I'm glad you asked, dearie. Now, I'll be the first to admit humans are the worst. Roman said, saluting as an example. Case in point. So, I understand why you would like to see us all locked away, or, better yet, killed. So, is he going somewhere with this? Sun whispered, leaning over to Blake. The two had the demonic masks of the White Fang on their faces to conceal their identities. But, before the claws come out, I'd like to mention the fact that you and I all have a common enemy. The ones in control, the people pulling the strings, the dirty, rotten humans that run our kingdoms. Roman stated, the crowd changing their tune and starting to agree with him. Government, military, even the schools. They're all to blame for your lot in life. He exclaimed, letting the crowd cheer as the two students shared a look. And they're all pests taught need to be dealt with. Fortunately, I'm the best exterminator around, no offense to any rodents in the room. With a snap of his fingers, the curtain behind him fell, and the whole mass of Fronis applauded at the sight of what was behind the fallen curtain. Looming on the stage was an enormous mech with various guns, and the White Fang symbol emblazoned on one side of it. This was the Edo-B released at Legion Paladin 290. Whoa, that's a big robot, Sun said. How did he get that? Blake asked. As some of you might have heard, this right here, Roman started, tapping the giant mech. Is Atlas's newest defense against all the scary things in the world. And thanks to my employer, we've managed to snag a few before they, hit the shelves. Now, many of your brothers have already moved down to our new operation in the southeast. If you'd rather stay within the city, that's fine. But if you're truly ready to fight for what you believe in, this is the arsenal I can provide you. Any questions? The White Fang's roaring applause was the response he got. This is bad. Nico said. We need to report this to HQ, Karasu stated. We should get out of here. Blake said to Sunday. Will all new recruits please come forward? The White Fang lieutenant said. Welp. Sun exclaimed as the line surged forward with the two having to follow. But Yang and Neptune. I don't know. Junior exclaimed, putting down his glass as he sat behind the bar separating him from his interrogator. How can you not know? Yang questioned. I haven't talked to him. I haven't even seen him since the night you first came in here. Junior said, leaning over to point in Yang's face. He paid up front, I lent him my men, and none of them ever came back. So where did they go? Neptune asked, rushing to Yang's side to raise a question of his own. What kind of stupid question is that? They never came back. Junior said after a long pause before turning to Yang. Who is this guy? Don't worry about him, worry about me if I don't find out what I want. Yang said, pushing Neptune out of the way with one hand. I already told you everything. Torchwick hired my boys, and I guess he wasn't happy with them, which is something I can relate to. Junior said, shouting the last part at his own men, who grumbled and walked away in response. Come on, Neptune. Yang said, turning from the bar and walking away. We get everything we need? Neptune asked, following with his hands in his pockets. Well, we got everything we can. Hopefully the rest of the team is having better luck. Yang said. As the two walked to the exit, Yang was bumped into by a shadowy figure concealed by a black cloak, the hood up covering up the figure's face. Oops, sorry. She exclaimed to the shadowy figure. The shadowy figure continued walking away as if nothing happened. Yang shrugged her shoulders before walking away as well. While the two students exited the building, little did they notice the shadowy figure staring at them as they walked away. The moment the two went through the door, the shadowy figure pulled his hood down, revealing the unmasked Kitsune. "It's been a while since I last saw you," Naruto Jr. said, not bothering to give a second glance at the approaching form of Naruto from his seat at the bar. "Indeed it has, Jr." Naruto said, sitting next to Jr. "What can I do for you?" Jr. asked. Naruto pulled out two photos from his cloak, one being of Roman/RWBY and the other being of Cinder. "I need anything you got on these two," Naruto stated. Jr. looked at both photos for a few seconds before looking back at Naruto. "Well, you aren't the first person Todi to ask about Roman today. I'm sorry to say I haven't heard anything from him ever since he hired my men a month or so back," Jr. said. "And the second one?" Naruto asked. "Her name is Cinder. She has excellent control over fire, but that's about all I know. She's been able to keep herself hidden from the majority of my sources in the know. Sorry I couldn't help you, but those are two of the most tricky bastards to ever set foot in this town," Jr. stated. "Anything else?" "Just one more thing," Naruto said, his expression softening slightly. "How has she been?" he asked, causing Jr. to chuckle. "She's been doing fine. She just left with some blue-haired kid moments before we started our little talk," Jr. answered. "Good to know," Naruto said, a small smile appearing on his face. "With Blake and Sun." The White Fang was still cheering loudly as the recruits were marched to the stage, with Blake and Sun having no choice but to follow along. "What are we going to do?" Sun whispered to Blake. "I'm thinking," Blake said. Sun watched Roman lean on the robot, smoking his cigar and laughing with the girl beside him, before he zeroed in on the two, frowning. "He sees us," Sun said. Blake began observing the surrounding area for a way to escape, only to notice an interesting development. Across from the duo, hanging off the opposite wall, was Nico and Karasu, the latter having pulled out his tanto in preparation to slash the nearby junction box. "He can't see in the dark," Blake said. With that, Karasu slashed the box, making the lights go out for the whole building. Seeing as this was an opportune chance to escape, Sun and Blake leapt off the stage in the confusion. "Don't let them get away," Roman yelled. "Sun. The window," Blake exclaimed. "Stop them," Roman exclaimed. Before the two students crashed through the window and started running as fast as they could, the mechanized sound of running power signaled the Elysian Paladin's activation, and it crashed through the wall of the building in pursuit of the runaways, who leapt off of a car and managed to get on the roofs. The Paladin followed beside them on the street as Blake and Sun ran, jumped, and flipped from rooftop to rooftop. "So you wouldn't happen to have I don't know, some form of backup?" Sun asked amidst twirls in the air. "On it?" Blake exclaimed, pulling out her scroll and putting it to her ear as she continued to jump. "With Weiss." Weiss walked out of the cross-continental transmit tower's elevator, her part of the investigation having been completed. Her outfit had undergone a change much like the rest of her teammates. She now wore a pure white dress with black edging and 2 columns of 4 black buttons on the abdomen. There was a print of her snowflake emblem on her back in pale blue, rather than her original outfit's white snowflake emblem. The inside of the skirt portion of her dress contained black frills. And finally, she wore thigh-high wide high-heel boots with frilly black thigh-high stockings that came up slightly above the top of her boots. She was thrown out of her musings by a message coming through her scroll. "Everyone. If you can hear me, we need back," Blake started on a scroll call. "Help!" Sun exclaimed in the background of the call. Weiss rolled her eyes and started running out the door, a little smile on her face as she did so. "With Ruby." Ruby was standing beside a boarded-up dumpster, staring at her scroll. Like the rest of her team, Ruby had changed her outfit for the investigation. She was wearing a long-sleeved light gray shirt with black belted cuffs near the ends of the sleeves. Over top of the gray shirt was a black piece of clothing with 2 vertical lines of red stitching that resembled a cross between a corset and overalls. She wore a red skirt with a large black colored print of her rose emblem on the side of it, and the inside of her skirt was black. She still wore black stockings and her black and red boots. A few pieces of metal arranged in an abstract shape were attached to her sleeve on her left shoulder. As usual, she wore a red cape with this outfit. This cape was short like the one she wore with her uniform, but with a scarf as part of the hood. The reason as to why she was standing beside a boarded-up dumpster was simple: there was a rat in there. And she was thrown in there when her friend Penny hid her from some Elysian soldiers that were after her, because she was the first synthetic person capable of generating an aura. But right now, Ruby wasn't focused on that, she was focused on her scroll call. "Big robot. And it's big. Really big," Sun exclaimed over the scroll call. "Oh, I am not missing this," Ruby exclaimed excitedly before running off to join the fight. "With Kitsune." "Taicho?" Nico's voice called out over the shortwave radio. "What is it?" Naruto asked, putting his Kitsune mask on before pulling his hood back up and exiting the club. "We've encountered some students from Beacon. They're in an altercation with Roman/RWBY," Nico said. That Torchwick guy is in it. But not like it didn't eat him, he's, like, controlling it or something. Sun said. Where are you guys? Yang asked. What's their location? Kitsune asked over the radio as he walked out of the club. Right on cue, behind the trio, Blake and Sun could be seen running through the street with the paladin hot on their heels before they all disappeared from view. Following shortly after the three was Nico and Karasu. Hurry! Sun yelled in both person and on the scroll. Was that your friends? Kitsune questioned. I have a lot of eccentric friends. Yang said before putting her scroll away and hopping on her motorcycle. Think you can keep up, old man? She asked, directing the question at Kitsune. Had it not been for the mask and the hood, one would be able to see a tick mark appear on Kitsune's head. The real question is, can you keep up? Kitsune called out before taking off after the Elysian paladin at inhumane speeds. This caused Yang to look at the blurred form of Kitsune in shock for a few seconds before a large grin appeared on her face as she quickly circled her ride around, much to Neptune's alarm, and drove off to follow them. But Blake and Sun somehow made it to the highways, jumping down into the busy street and continuing their escape by hopping on cars while the paladin followed them, pushing vehicles out of the way as the giant mecha gave chase. Following after the three soon after was Nico and Karasu, and Kitsune, Yang, and Neptune. Kitsune, Yang, and Neptune soon caught up with Nico and Karasu as the group gave chase to the paladin. Where's Torchwick? Kitsune asked as he ran beside his two teammates. He's the one piloting the paladin. Nico said, much to Kitsune's surprise. How the hell did he get his hands on a weaponized mech, an Elysian one that hasn't even been deployed into the field yet? Kitsune exclaimed. What are you talking about? Yang asked, giving a curious look to the mysterious animal masked people. That thing chasing your friends is an Elysian paladin, a highly advanced mecha armed to the teeth in weapons. Those things were just announced to the public today for dust's sake. Nico replied. We've got to slow it down then. Yang exclaimed. Got it. Neptune said, reaching for the gun on his back. Roman noticed the pair on his sensors and crashed into a multitude of cars with the paladin's strong bulk, sending them flying towards his chasers. Hold on. Yang said as she swerved, leaning her bike to the side in avoidance of flying debris, while Neptune flails in a panic. Kitsune, Nico, and Karasu leapt in between incoming obstacles. Back on 2 wheels and 2 feet again, Neptune unslung his weapon, aimed as sparks started flying, and fired off several bolts of blue electricity at the paladin, causing Roman to grimace from the force of the attacks. Switching strategies, Yang pulled her motorcycle back as Nico ran up to the paladin, drawing the katana off her back and slashing at the mech's feet, a crescent-like afterimage appearing with every swing. After a few slashes against the cold metal of the machine, Nico pulled back to allow Karasu to lunge forward. Karasu unsheathed his tanto, said weapon began emitting a orange ethereal glow as he slashed at the paladin. Kitsune jumped atop Yang's motorcycle, landing on Neptune, the latter yelling in protest. Ignoring the blue-haired boy, Kitsune pulled out his kamas, the chain connecting them retracting, until the two were connected. The bottom blade rotated 90°, while the top blade was covered in a light blue ethereal glow, giving the weapon a side-like appearance. With a test swing of the blade, Naruto pushed off of Neptune's head and lunged at the paladin, causing Neptune to fall off the motorcycle and off the highway, Sun going after him. Karasu fell back to allow the leader of his squad to strike. Kitsune swung his scythe at one of the paladin's arms. The strike missed the majority of the arm, but took a chunk of the left shoulder off. Roman noticed this and swung the same robotic arm at Kitsune, effectively knocking the masked man back. Kitsune flew back, hitting the ground with a thud before tumbling. Seconds later, he righted himself and began running after the mechanized monstrosity again. Blake. I'm in position. Weiss exclaimed over the scroll call. She was seen twirling over a highway and landing in the middle of the road, holding her rapier, Murtnister, at the approaching Roman. He smiled as his robot charged the girl, but Weiss spun and plunged her blade into the ground, summoning a circle of ice across the pavement that caused the paladin to slip and crash, actually flying over the young huntress and falling off the ramp, landing further down before Ruby, already having her weapon, Crescent Rose, out in its scythe form. Freezer burn. Ruby exclaimed as she jumped back out of the way, Blake doing the same, as Weiss performed her same eye circle trick, but backflipped out of Yang's way when she jumped into the air and hit the epicenter with her twin gauntlets, Ember Celica, creating a wave of mist that surrounds Roman. Immediately, the paladin activated its laser sensors to make up for the lost sight, but barely see the afterimage of 3 black blurs. Nico, Karasu, and Kitsune swiftly slashed against the paladin, causing some damage, but not enough to do anything to destroy it. This was enough to distract the paladin so that Ruby could slash off one of the guns. Checkmate. Ruby exclaimed. Blake and Weiss went in this time, each girl going for the feed until Weiss jumped up and stabbed a sensor before leaping off of a white glyph. The moment she did so, Nico went in for a strike, leaving an afterimage as she prepared her technique. Babarazakio, Hazy Moon Knight. Nico exclaimed as her blade sliced through the left arm, effectively severing it. Roman lifted the paladin's foot to crush Nico, but Weiss summoned another glyph under her temporary ally to launch her backwards before the crushing blow could land. Roman growled and fired off the missiles, but Weiss, Blake and Nico flipped backwards as the explosion merely hit where they were. Finally, Weiss jumped too high and Roman fired a double energy blast at her. Verdnister absorbed the damage, but Weiss was thrown back, so she casts a beam of light from her weapon to the ground under Blake, forming a yellow clockwork circle that's absorbed into the Faunus girl and lets her slice through each launched missile with ease in a flurry of super fast slashes. Red Fox. Ruby yelled, jumping into the fray alongside Kitsune. Despite having only just met him, Ruby was able to devise a strategy using what she saw about his fighting style so far. Kitsune morphed his weapons into their twin comma form, throwing them so that the chain connecting them would pull the paladin in a downward motion. Using the given opportunity, Ruby used her scythe sniper to shoot off another sensor on the robot before slashing at the beep pit. Kitsune and Ruby pulled back when Yang suddenly jumped onto the paladin's back and began punching the top with fiery shotgun blasts. Roman was knocked around in the cabin, but seeing as he couldn't reach her with his remaining mechanical arm, he ran backwards through 2 columns and left her embedded in a third before backing away and turning towards her. Just as she was falling down, the remaining arm extended a closed fist. "Yang!" Blake exclaimed. Before the robotic fist could hit her though, a light blue ethereal arm blocked the punch. Standing near Yang was Kitsune, who was covered in the same light blue flames. The entire thing that covered him resembled the upper half of a strange humanoid. One hand was blocking the paladin, while the other hand held Yang to keep her from falling. "What is that?" Ruby asked, seeing the strange blue flames covering Kitsune. "I think he would resort to using that against the paladin," Karasu muttered. "You know what this thing is, Karasu?" Nico asked. "It's part of his semblance, he calls it," Karasu said. "Susanoo, tempestuous god of valor." Kitsune yelled before the blue-flamed humanoid formed another pair of hands, making a total of 4. This was all the warning given before 2 of the 4 hands struck at the paladin. As the giant robot was pushed back, Kitsune used his control over Susanoo to gently place Yang on the ground. The paladin, having recovered from the strike, attempts to retreat from the Susanoo. Kitsune charged forward, the blue flames following him as he threw attacks at the robot, only for said attacks to narrowly miss. "We have to slow it down," Ruby said. "And how do you propose we do that?" Weiss questioned. "Ice flowers," Ruby exclaimed. Both girls twirled their weapons so they both pointed at Roman. Weiss created a series of glyphs in front of the scythe sniper barrel, and a single shot through the circles created a dazzling spiral of energy that created large icicles upon impact with the paladin. Ruby continued to shoot as Weiss froze the fire, and as the ice completely enveloped the robot's body, Kitsune charged forward one last time, both his own left fist and the 2 left fists of the Susanoo pulling back before striking the paladin, causing it to fly into the air before crashing down in 100 pieces and a defeated criminal. "Just got this thing clean," Roman muttered as he got up, slightly dazed but unharmed as he inspected the damage while brushing himself off. He looked up just in time to see Kitsune, whose Susanoo had receded into just light blue flames covering his form, throw a fireball of the same flame at the defenseless thief, but he was saved at the last instant when a 2-tone girl dropped in front of him and merely opened her pink umbrella, deflecting the blast entirely. The new arrival hangs the weapon over her shoulder as Roman recovered. "Ladies, gentlemen," Ice Queen Roman stated. "Hey!" Weiss exclaimed. "Always a pleasure." "Neo, if you would," Roman said. The pink and brown girl curtsied her enemies with a bow, but Yang would have none of it as she charged forward with her fists raised to strike the outlaws, only to break their image as if made out of a mirror and turn just in time to see them escape in a bullhead. The rest of Team RWBY ran up to Yang's side, now cooled down from her slight anger with the end of the fight. "So I guess he got a new henchman," Yang said. "Yeah, I guess she really made our plans fall apart," Y said before smiling, the bad pun causing Ruby to giggle and Blake to start walking away. "No. Just no," Yang stated. "But hey, you do it," Y said, slightly peeved at the blonde-haired girl. "There's a time and a place for jokes," Yang said. "Was this not it?" Weiss asked. "No, it just wasn't very good," Yang said before following Blake. "Well, at least I'm trying," Y said in defense. "Wait, where'd those 3 masked guys go?" Ruby asked, causing the 4 huntresses in training to look around for the 3 strangers that helped them. But Kitsune, Karasu and Nico. Kitsune was crouching as he stared down at the group from atop a nearby building, having taken his mask off as he held it in his hand. A look of regret and sorrow came across his face as he watched a group of Beacon students. He felt a hand being placed on his shoulder and turned to see the hand belonged to Karasu. Steeling himself, Kitsune got up and placed his mask back on before the three leapt away to Anbu headquarters. Unknown to those around him, including himself, a lone drip of water fell out of Kitsune's mask as he jumped away. But Sun and Neptune were seen sitting in the middle stools of a small open bar restaurant known as A Simple Wok Noodle House, eating their plates of noodles, with an elderly man sitting behind the counter and their weapons leaning on the other two stools. "They're probably fine, right?" Neptune asked. "Probably," Sun said before turning back to his noodles, Neptune doing the same as the two ate in silence. The image began to fade to black as the end credits began to roll. Play Tsukaya Kari no Michishiru by Stereopony, Darker Than Black. Ryusei no Gemini Opening 1. Tsukayarari no Michishiru. The first image was of a carpeted floor with a shadowy image of a window on the ground. Shortly after, the silhouette of two girls walking by was seen. Kumo wo Koboku nai Todak. The younger Yang, if the shorter hair was anything to go by, was seen sitting on a light blue bench, her knees held close to her being as she rested her head on her hands. A small luggage was seen to her right, and to her left was an equally tired younger Ruby, who was sleeping against Yang, using her as a makeshift pillow. Tsusumu Biki Michi wo Terashite yo. The image zoomed out to reveal that the two were resting in a train station. Ayu ga Donanai Kawarasu demo. Yang lifted her head up slightly. The picture soon being replaced by a rapid appearance of images of a tall black-haired man with a few strands of hair sticking out here and there, a slightly taller man with patches of gray in his black hair, and then finally a young enthusiastic Ruby. Nidarika Ashid. Minasu Nano Kana. Various utility poles passed by as the sun began setting in the background, giving the sky an orange look. Ayu ga Shai was Nara. Sorat Ai to Amrit. The younger Yang stared out the window of the train at the scenery passing by, a bowl of ramen in front of her. In her right hand was a pair of chopsticks while her left hand supported her head. Sitting opposite to her was a younger Ruby who was happily munching away at a plate of cookies. Asanai Koronai wa. In a far distance shot, a younger Yang was seen pulling along a younger Ruby with one hand and a luggage in the other. They appeared to be at a harbor. Hashikanai Adayu. The image was replaced by another shot of the younger Yang pulling along a younger Ruby and luggage, this time at a train station. Yumwo Kakateta. The younger Yang pulled the younger Ruby and her luggage along faster as the two jumped in a moving train, the young Yang hopping on first before helping the young Ruby aboard. Emo Sormo Tui Kyoku. The fast-paced shot of train tracks was seen before being replaced by an image of a younger Danzō standing beside a very pale-skinned, nearly white young boy with jet black hair and an obviously fake smile on his face. This was transitioned into a set of images, of this included a younger Yugao turning her head slightly, a younger Anko backing up slightly with a grin on her face, a stoic Itachi staring off into the distance as snow fell around him, a younger Blake protesting at a rally, a younger Weiss jumping away, a wooden sword in her hands, and lastly, an close-up face image of a younger Naruto with his kitsune mask on looking up, giving an intimidating appearance to the young Anbu operative. Hadi no nai Minichi ga. Hadasuideuku Jaiken ga. The present-day members of Team RWBY and JNPR were seen having fun on a beach. The image being shot from Yang's perspective as her friends motioned for her to follow them. Por Karasaki do Naru no Deru. Bukaranai. Yang stood atop a windy hill, her long locks of blonde hair dancing in the wind as she stared off into the distance. She closed her eyes before walking away. Tsukayarari no Michishiru. Kumo wo Koboku nai Todak. An aerial shot of a train was seen as it sped off to its destination, the sun having just begun to peak above the horizon. Tsusumu Biki Michi wo Terashite yo. Naruto, with his back to the camera, slowly walked away as the wind blew a black trench coat he wore to the left. His hair appeared to be significantly longer than before, reaching his shoulder. In the background appeared a destroyed city before an image of Naruto's face looking down, his Sharingan activated, appeared to the right of the Naruto that was walking away. As the near-transparent Naruto looked down, tears began to fall out of his eyes. Ayu ga Donanai Kawarasu demo. The image focused in on Yang before zooming out to reveal her standing beside the rest of Team RWBY and Team JNPR. A burst of white transitioned the image to one of Naruto as his head turned up to look at the stars, the image following his stare as two shooting stars were seen flying by. So this part ends here. Alright, that's it for today's video guys. Let me know in the comments section how was the story, and also don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I will meet you in another video. Bye bye.